All right, let's jump right into it. Today, in this explainer, we are unpacking a totally wild, highly detailed text presentation for a supplement called Primal Grow Pro. Whether you're into marketing psychology, researching supplements, or, just kind of curious about how these massive, elaborate internet pitches are actually constructed, this source material is honestly a masterclass in storytelling. We're going to break down its claims, tracing the narrative journey from a supposedly hidden jungle ritual all the way to the final high-pressure checkout cart. So the source material, it wastes zero time. Boom, right out of the gate, it launches into this incredibly bold, attention-grabbing claim about a secret 3,000-year-old ritual. Notice how it immediately sets the stakes here. It doesn't start with, subtle anatomical science. No, it starts with an explosive promise of a 35% increase, totally grounded in the mystique of an ancient, hidden African cocktail. It is literally designed to lock in the attention of an audience that's actively looking for a dramatic fix. But hey, bold claims need an authority figure to back them up, right? So to establish some credibility, the presentation introduces us to our narrator, Christopher Adams. According to the text, Adams graduated from the Boston University School of Medicine in 1998, spent a whole decade as a lab researcher, and even claims he was part of the original clinical teams that researched Viagra. By laying out the specific timeline, the pitch is actively working to lower your guard. It's basically telling you, hey, don't worry, you aren't listening to a slick marketer. You're listening to a seasoned medical professional whose life's mission led him to a fateful expedition deep into the Congo. Which brings us to the African Congo discovery, a jungle expedition. Let's look at exactly how this narrative sets up its very first major premise, the actual discovery of this supposed miracle. Get this. The story takes a turn that's practically out of an adventure novel. Adams claims that after hitting a complete dead end in his lab, a frantic tip from a skeptical Harvard colleague named Dean sent him packing. The text describes this grueling 16-hour plane ride, followed by a dangerous 2-day trek through the dark jungle. And where does he end up? Right in the middle of a massive, unbelievable tribal gathering. The author paints the super vivid picture of a remote African village to make the discovery feel earned, highly exclusive, and completely untouched by the modern world. While he's observing this gathering, the text drops a striking mystery right in the reader's lap. Adams claims he noticed something supposedly impossible. Every single man in this remote tribe, young and old, had penises measuring anywhere from 12 to 18 inches. Plus, they possess this relentless stamina. So the hook here is the question the presentation literally forces you to ask. How on earth were these tribesmen so incredibly endowed, performing for hours with absolutely zero access to modern pharmaceuticals like Viagra or Cialis? Was it just incredible genetics? Or was there a secret? Moving on to the malabsorption theory, the missing scientific link. To answer that wild jungle mystery, the presentation yanks us from the exotic jungle back to the clinical lab. Adams claims to have uncovered that growth relies entirely on what he refers to as penis building blocks. According to the text, these aren't some synthetic drugs, they're actually special nutrients extracted from the everyday food you eat, stuff like folic acid, vitamin E, and ursolic acid, which he helpfully notes comes from apple peels. The argument is that, just like your lungs need oxygen, your body absolutely requires these specific building blocks to fuel localized physical growth. And this is where the pitch gets really clever. It sets up a stark contrast to illustrate the core conflict. The presentation argues that a smaller size isn't a genetic curse. Rather, it's just a leak in your body. It compares a healthy, normal body where nutrients are fully absorbed into the bloodstream against a state of what he calls penis nutrient malabsorption. If you've got this malabsorption, your body just can't assimilate these building blocks, and you literally eliminate them every single day. So they brilliantly reframe a physical insecurity into a simple, totally fixable digestive issue. Now, what's a great pitch without a little self-diagnosis? Instead of just lecturing, the text actually asks you to evaluate your own body right then and there. It poses the question, how do you test for this dangerous leak at home? It's a classic direct response technique, making you an active participant in your own diagnosis. And their answer? The yellow urine test. Using the metaphor of a leaky bucket, the author claims that if your urine is yellow, well, you are actively flushing away your precious growth nutrients. The presentation even casually drops a supposed Johns Hopkins study, claiming that 8 out of 10 men suffer from this invisible leak.
It's incredibly strategic. It takes a universally normal human bodily function, having yellow urine, and suddenly recontextualizes it as a dangerous symptom of the exact problem they are trying to solve. All right, leading us to the Primal Grow formula, unpacking the recipe. Once the reader is thoroughly agitated and potentially self-diagnosing this leak, the explainer quickly pivots to the ultimate solution, the Primal Grow Pro supplement itself. The text doesn't just lazily say, hey, take this pill. No, it lays out exactly how the formula supposedly works, using a strict 5-step biological roadmap. Step 1 is fast absorption of the pure ingredients. Step 2 specifically targets and treats that nasty malabsorption leak. Step 3 triggers what they actually call hyperexpansion. Step 4 expands the benefits to your whole body, promising things like increased muscle definition. And finally, Step 5 provides long-term fortification so the results actually stick around. It makes the whole process feel scientific and inevitable. Now, oddly enough, the main African plant that triggered the jungle miracle remains suspiciously unnamed. But the source text does detail several other familiar ingredients. Adams notes they wanted to make the formula even more powerful than the tribal potion. So they threw in L-glutamine to fix the gut leak, St. John's wort for stress, huperzine for memory, L-carnitine for cellular energy, ginkgo biloba for oxygenation, and Bacopa moneri as a natural testosterone booster. By listing these common recognized supplements, the presentation carefully layers familiar science right over its more fantastical claims. And to make it all sound incredibly legit, Adams states that exactly 1,450 brave volunteers successfully tested this formula. The text really goes out of its way to emphasize that this was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study conducted in independent labs across the US and Europe. Throwing out a specific, hefty number like 1,450, that's a very deliberate choice to provide an overwhelming sense of mathematically sound social proof. Finally, we hit purchasing and guaranteeing, the commercial offer. The scientific story wraps up, and we shift straight into the commercial logistics, telling the reader exactly how to grab a bottle. You're looking at a pretty standard 3-tier setup. A single bottle for a 30-day supply sits at $69. 2 bottles for 60 days is $118, and 4 bottles for 120 days is $196. The author makes a huge point to mention that Big Pharma would normally charge hundreds of dollars for this stuff, framing these exact prices as a massive, limited-time discount born purely out of the creator's goodwill. But surprise, surprise, the pitch heavily pushes you toward that largest option. The text argues that 98% of users choose the 4-bottle option. Why? Because according to the narrative we just learned, it takes a full 120 days to completely seal the leak, repair the unseen internal damage, and fully restock those essential building blocks. It's a textbook upsell. They've created a biological justification for why buying in bulk isn't just a good deal, it's a medical necessity. To completely eliminate any cold feet, the pitch slaps a massive 60-day guarantee on the whole thing. 100% zero questions asked money-back guarantee. The text literally says, I'm taking all of the risk here, which means you've got absolutely nothing to lose. It's the ultimate safety net, perfectly placed to push a skeptical reader right over the edge into becoming a buyer. And that brings us to the ultimate call to action. If you are curious to explore this offer further, or you want to actually try the product out for yourself under that 60-day guarantee, you're instructed to simply check out the link provided in the description. It's the final squeeze in a meticulously crafted sales funnel, warning you that supplies are running out due to those rare African ingredients. So that leaves us with a pretty big question. We've traced this whole journey from an impossible jungle discovery through the pseudoscience of nutrient malabsorption and yellow urine, right down to the tiered pricing strategy. Whether you buy into the wild jungle science or not, you got to admit this is one incredibly structured, deeply psychological presentation. Does nature truly hold the ultimate secret to human enhancement, or is the most powerful tool simply a wildly compelling story? Think about that next time you see a pitch online. Thanks for joining me on This Explainer, and we'll catch you next time.